that time again. It is time for Diary of a Physicist Farmgal, and this is episode number 33. My name is Deborah, and I live here on my family farm in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks. And this podcast is because I like to do all the crafts. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I'm on a needlework kick right now, so who knows? I like to try any craft once and twice if I like it. So I'll spend the first part talking about the different crafting things I have going on. But I am also a full professor of physics and astronomy at a local university where I teach classes to physics majors. I teach classes in astrophysics, meteorology. I also teach general education classes, and I volunteer to do planetarium programs for school groups and community groups as well. And last but certainly not least, I am a third-generation family farmer here on this farm that my family has lived on for over a century. I raise grass-fed beef cattle. I also have horses and heritage poultry. I have show quality rabbits, and I have a rescue herd or a retirement herd, whichever you prefer to call them, of miniature horses, miniature donkeys, and a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost. And as you can tell from my sweet co-host Willie here, I am fur kid mom to 14 dogs, 7 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, because I'm going to talk about a little of all that, y'all come along with me on the episode number 33 of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. Okay, I want to welcome any new viewers we've got today, and I want to welcome back those of y'all who have stuck with me this long. My podiversary is coming up next month, and ironically, or maybe not so ironically, that will be also around the time of my 3rd anniversary of Willie and Ellie Mae's Gotcha Day. I remember very clearly I got them in the middle of February 2016, much to the consternation of the person I was dating at the time. That was just okay. So I'll talk about that closer to time. Might do a little giveaway for my podiversary. We'll see what I can come up with between now and then that y'all might be interested in. But I appreciate those of you who have hung with me this long. This podcast is not quite like some of the other ones because I do talk about other stuff, but though I appreciate my very loyal following very much, and I'm grateful for all of y'all. So if you're looking for us on social media, the podcast does have a Ravelry group where we talk about make-alongs and giveaways and sort of general chit-chat, and we'll get to the whole make-along mayhem here in a little bit. But also you can find my farm Facebook page is the same as my YouTube channel name. It is Buckthorn Farms. And you can also find me personally on Instagram and on Ravelry as Doc Firewoman. I am also on Twitter, but as I often preface or warn you and say, I am a big old liberal snowflake, and Twitter is where I do most of my political venting. So if that kind of stuff gives you high blood pressure, probably best not to follow me on Twitter. Because I go to town sometimes on there. But I try to keep it at a dull roar everywhere else. So you can find us there. Now, do join our Ravelry group if you're interested in getting involved in all of our different make-alongs. Also, Willie, what do you got? Huh? Can I have it? Oh, it's a pecan. I guess you can. I don't know where you come up with that from, but okay. So Willie will enjoy his snack while I'm telling you about our make-alongs. Do join my Ravelry group, and also if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you don't enjoy this video, that's fine too. Just move along. My feelings will not be hurt, but you know, don't be nasty. Just go along. On the Ravelry group, we do have a few make-alongs going on. And I will just briefly talk about those. If you want to know more details about those, you can either check out the post on the Ravelry Group, or you can go back to my New Year's Day podcast, the previous episode, and you can find out a lot more details about those. And then I'm also going to share with you some make-alongs that friends of mine are running. And I'm going to tell you about some sales and things like that some friends of mine are running. So the first make-along I want to talk about is our Farmer's Almanac make-along. Our Farmer's Almanac make-along is a make-along that is monthly prizes, usually pattern prizes, where I will create a post that has information gleaned from the Farmer's Almanac about astronomical stuff, about different tidbits of trivia, folklore, interesting holidays, interesting occurrences that happen in the month, say, of January. And I will create a post about that, and then you can read that post, and maybe you can find something inspiring in that post. So, for example, Miss Shirley Knits 123 is crocheting a raccoon, because raccoon breeding season starts in January. Vanessa from the A Historian Knits podcast is knitting the upslope shawl, is starting the upslope shawl, because Rocky Mountain National Park was founded in the month of January. One of my whips that I'm going to show you was inspired by the fact that Stephen Hawking's birthday is in January. Now, here's something that I wanted to make clear. You don't have to finish it. You just have to make a start. So you can go, and I won't talk more long about it. You can go there and you can read about the rest of the rules. But about the 15th of this month, I will be posting the February information. So if you didn't do January, that's fine. But jump in on February if you would like. The next one is the Creature Feature make-along, which is crochet, knit, or loom knitting, and I am jointly hosting that with Laura from a Crocheting Whovian podcast. You do have to be members of both of our Ravelry groups, and you do need to set up a Ravelry project page for your creatures, but this is a quarterly, basically, toy make-along. It's amigurumis, and we're going to do quarterly themes, and right now we're working on the Under the Sea theme. If you've never made an amigurumi before, this is a good time to start. There's a lot of experienced amigurumi makers that are going to be in this make-along, so I encourage you to go jump in on that. And one of my whips is for that as well. Next is a make-along that I came up with because I got bitten by the needlework bug, and it's the Never Have I Ever make-along, and this is where you are to try a new skill or try out a new craft. So, for example, I am going to embroider some dish towels with the days of the week on them. I've got several of those Aunt Martha's transfers. I've kind of went wild and bought a whole bunch of those because they're 97 cents and they're cute. So I have several of those, so I'm going to embroider a set of days of the week dish towels. I've never embroidered before, but luckily I'm counting on Nancy to help me. Nancy's in our virtual knitting group. LaRue's going to learn to make a basket. Laura's going to try to do 2 at a time socks for the first time. So somewhere just to branch out, and my friend Carol's going to try to make her first amigurumi, so you can double dip. And I encourage double dipping, okay? Hi, you good boy? Okay, so that's Never Have I Ever. The next one is one that I am co-hosting with Vanessa from the A Historian Knits podcast, and that is I Like Big Shawls and I Cannot Lie. That is a knit-along only, and the shawl has to require 1,200 yards plus of yarn. So it's pretty straightforward. You can go to both of our groups, since it's a co-hosted one, and read about it. And you can cross-post in the 2 different groups. Our rules are slightly different, both for this and the creature feature. So make sure that you go and look at the rules, too, so that you are qualified to enter. There's hashtags that I'll post in the show notes for all of these. And also, if you would tag your projects on Ravelry, I'll put the tags for that on the post. I just figured out how to do that, so I will do that very soon. And then the last one that I'm hosting in this podcast right now is the Kidder Getter Done. The Kidder Getter Done is to take those kits, whether they be knitting kits or crochet kits or sewing kits or quilting kits or basket kits or jewelry kits or cross stitch or whatever, But I have a thing about kits. I love me some kits. And so it's an excuse for me to start working on them, and hopefully we can all motivate one another. So the kit or get her done. Whips are allowed if you started a kit a long time ago and you need a reason to pick it back up. Here you go. So all these are posted in my Ravelry group and pinned to the top. You can read the rules, and they are all running for the entire year of 2019. They are all running for the full year, so I encourage you to jump in on those. It's a great group of people and very helpful, so I encourage you to check those out. So now let me tell you about some that are going on and some other things that are going on from friends of mine. So first of all, I will start with Laura. Laura from Crocheting Whovian runs a virtual knit night. It's on Friday night. It's on Zoom. It's on a platform called Zoom, and it is a virtual, like teleconferencing type thing where we can all sit and knit together. It's a great way to get a lot of stuff done, or if you have questions or concerns. And it's also a good support group, you know, if you're battling a health issue or something like that and you just need someone to talk to. Because I find a lot of us knitters tend to be solitary people or sort of introverted people, and sometimes we need a group of people that kind of gets us, and that way we don't feel quite so alone. So I have really found it to be beneficial for that. Next, I will mention Army Wife Knit Life, which is Jessica. Army Wife Knit Life podcast is having a Golden Girls along because she loves the show The Golden Girls, and it is running from January 1 to March 31st, so the first quarter of the year. And so you can tie it to Golden Girls in a lot of different ways, so go check that out. So that's going on. Also, Pin, Hook, and Needles is hosting a couple of different make-alongs. They were kind enough to mention our creature feature, so I will mention there too. The Ready, Set, Go, which is a project where you have to use a minimum of 50 yards of yarn, and it has to be cast on from January 1st afterwards. It can't be a whip before January 1st. So it's something new. Get going for the first of the year. Then also, and it's running from January 1st to March 31st. Then they're also doing their Tea and Tails crochet and knit and loom along, which runs all year, and you have to tie it to T or some sort of tail, as in T-A-L-E, not T-A-I-L. Sorry, Willie. You don't like me in my example, do you? And so, for example, if you knit or crocheted for our creature feature, a humpback whale, you could tie it to Moby Dick. So there's a cool idea. Or if you had the kids book about Stella Luna and you wanted to crochet a bat, that you could tie it to that. So that's another opportunity for double dipping. The Nic Nac Knits podcast is hosting 2 different alongs right now. The first one is a year long, and it's the Sock It To Me knit along, and I believe that one may just be, you got to make a sock. So if you've got a bunch of second sock syndrome socks, that would be a good opportunity. And also the Scrappy along, and I believe that's also a year long, where you use up your scraps and do scrappy projects. So those are 2 really cool sort of get some things done and use up your materials make-alongs also. So that's the Nic Nac Knit podcast. Then some friends of mine are having a couple of interesting sales. So the first one is Agatha, A Magpie Knits. Her Etsy shop is having a sale that's running until the 21st of January. So if you see this in time, 10% off of everything. Okay, she has yarn. She has really cute project bags. So I encourage you to go check her out. So that's A Magpie Knits on Etsy. I'll link all this stuff down below. Then also, Heidi at Undead Yarn is doing a dye-to-order colorway called Chumley in honor of her sweet little doggie who recently crossed the Rainbow Bridge, and the proceeds from that, 20% of the proceeds, will go to an animal shelter. So I think that's a wonderful cause, and as soon as I get paid, I'm ordering some yarn to help out the animal shelter. And then last but not least, Logan let me know that Leon Alexander Yarns is doing their yarn club this year on a Dungeons and Dragons theme. That made me really happy. Sign-ups are still open until the 15th, so you've got a little bit of time if you watch this as soon as it goes up. It's a quarterly sign-up, so if you miss this one, you can jump in later, and it's $65 a quarter for their D&D based yarn. So that's a discount off of their retail prices. I think he said about a 15 or 20% discount. So it's a D&D club. I'm excited. Yay, I signed up for it. It's the first yarn club I've ever signed up for, so I'm excited about that. So those are the things that I know that are going on. If you are a viewer of this podcast and you have an Etsy shop, or you make things, project bags, or you make things, you know, any kind of maker, you know, I have a friend, Carrie, who is a leather worker, you know, let me know and I'll be glad to give you a shout out. I am going to give a quick shout out. This has nothing to do with commerce, but I know there are some people who have been under the weather. I know that several people on my knitting group, including Laura and LaRue, have been under the weather. So I hope that you're feeling better from the crud. And then also Kirsty from, I'm going to say this wrong, Kirsty, Grenade Creations. She's in Scotland. I believe she's in Glasgow or near Glasgow. She just had surgery, so hopefully you make a full and speedy recovery. And then Vanessa, yay, got a new house, yay, yay, yay. So that's exciting. So I just wanted to say that because I've made a lot of friends through this medium, and I'm very tickled about that, and I wanted to share. Oh, and plus Maria from Ninja Chickens, if you don't follow her on Instagram, she had an awesome post about Orion, the constellation Orion today, so go check that out. But anyway, so now we're going to move along, and I'm going to talk about my whip, or no, my FOs. I actually have an FO this week, so we're going to talk about that. Okay, I've only got one FO this week, and sometimes I won't have any, but you know, you don't need a certain number, I don't think, to be able to podcast, because, you know, this is not, I'm not a professional. Anyway, this is in my By the Bay Yarn Co. Bag that was exclusively made for the East Texas Fiber Festival, which I was excited to get to go to in November of last year. And in here I have finished my Project Peace Cowl. Okay, my Project Peace Cowl, which is a pattern by The Healthy Knitter. And each year they do this project to raise funds for a nonprofit that promotes peace in the world. Plus also she does some amazing blog posts. And this is this year's cowl. Okay, finished it last night, actually. I bound it off last night. Okay, it is a beautiful, beautiful cowl. With periodically it has panels. Let me see if I can find one. You gonna jump down? Okay. Of flying geese. It's kind of hard to see here, but in pictures it looks a lot better. But there are 3 panels of flying geese in here, and she talks about the representation of those in the pattern paperwork, which unfortunately I don't have handy. But there are things about like justice and hope and fairness and equality and all that stuff. It's a wonderful, wonderful, very inspiring series of blog posts about this. So I was very, very pleased to be involved with it, and I will definitely be involved next year. I was very, very pleased. The pattern is beautiful, super easy to memorize, super, super nice, quick knit. There were 2 options for the cowl. There was this one, which is longer, so you can double it up, and shorter, and then there's one that is shorter around but a little bit longer, so it's more like a funnel. So funnel, tube, I don't know what you want to say. But anyway, so there's this one, and this was made with a group of minis that were in my Advent swap from Laura. So there's the flying geese panel there. You can see it a little bit better. Okay, so this is Project Peace 2018, and I actually purchased the ebook, so I'm excited to see what the other patterns are. I've just got to weave. I've got to wash and block some stuff and then weave in my ends. Maybe tomorrow will be good for that. It's beautiful and warm here today, but I was off farm for a little while, so I didn't have time. And then I've got my cute little progress keeper from Miss Shirley on there, Shirley Knits 123, that when my progress keeper swap that we did this year at the holidays, and I got a lot of good feedback about that, so we will definitely do it again next year. Okay, so that is my one FO. So now we'll move on to my whips. Okay, so in my whips, I have a few different things that I've been working on. The first thing is I was gifted this pattern by Missy. It was very sweet. She's in my virtual knitting group because they know I love the narwhals. So she gifted me this pattern, and I decided to make this as one of my entries for our creature feature Under the Sea. So I have started this last night. I'm up to the point where I need to add the eyes and start stuffing, and I am just crocheting this out of some older Red Heart Baby Soft. This colorway is called Key West, and this was some yarn that somebody gave me, but I thought it would make an adorable little narwhal. The one in the pattern is actually striped. They actually used different colors and striped it. But I decided to go this route with the variegated yarn, so I thought this would be really adorable. So that's my first whip. Get that set aside here so that I can find it when I want to work on it later. Okay, my next whip is my neighbors who help me quite frequently on my farm. Their son is the one who had the baby recently that I made a little baby blanket for. Well, their daughter asked me sort of shyly if I would make her a ponytail hat. And I'm like, well, sure, of course. And she said, do you have any like wild colored yarn? And I said, oh, yes. So this is Red Heart also. This is their stripes colorway in their neon stripes. And I started this today while Carol and I were taking a little road trip. So I've just got the top portion done. I always crochet mine around a ponytail elastic. And now I'm going down the side. So I think it's going to be nice and bright and colorful for her. So I may try to finish this up tonight, but if not, I'll get it done over the weekend. So got that whip going also. Don't have that even in a project bag. I've just been toting it around like that. Okay, then the next thing is an entry that is eligible for my Farmer's Almanac make-along. This is my, obviously I can't enter my own make-alongs, but it inspired me to make this. This is in my little Fun Science Guys bag. This was a gift from Miss Mary Knitter. Okay, she kindly made this bag for me as well as my Women in Science bag. What have you got? Huh? What have you got? Oh, okay. You're a good boy. You can have your toy. All right. You never know with him. He's found a Coke bottle. This yarn is by String Theory Colorworks. This is on her Continuum sock base. It's a 75% merino, 25% nylon base. This is fingering weight for socks. And this is a colorway called Hawking Radiation. So Stephen Hawking was born in the month of January. So I thought, well, that will be perfect to use for, oh, I'm sorry, this was not on Continuum. This was on Entanglement. Entanglement. Hang on just a second. Willie's going to play on some feed sacks here. Willie, come here. Willie, what are you doing? He's found some feed sacks over there that he thinks he needs to play on. But anyway, so I am making this is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's the Simple Chevron Striped Scarf. Okay, and this is by Karen Martinez. All right. And it's perfect for these self-striping sock yarns. That she said that was kind of why she wrote it. And yesterday I went on to campus to try to get stuff ready for the beginning of the semester, which our semester begins. I start classes on Friday. So I went in with all these good intentions of getting stuff done. Well, we have this little thing called Active Directory, which means that when you log in, the IT people update your computer. Well, I haven't been on campus since December the 14th, so my computer spent 3.5 hours updating yesterday, which means I didn't get very much done. So luckily I had taken this with me to knit on my lunch hour, so I got a little bit started on the scarf. So this is how it's striping up. Okay. So I thought this would be a good kind of carry around pattern with me, or project with me. And again, this is a free pattern on Ravelry. So this qualifies for my Farmer's Almanac make-along because Stephen Hawking was born in January, and that's where I got the idea to make that scarf. So you just got to make the case. I'm pretty easy to get along with. You don't have to really worry too much. I'm pretty laid back about that. Okay, Then the next thing that I have been working on is I started back on my Midwinter Moon Mystery Knit Along, which is now no longer a mystery. This is in my April 9 Designs alpacas bag. This pattern is by Larissa Brown. It's no longer a mystery. It's over with. I was late getting done. Didn't even really get started good on it, but it's a Midwinter Moon Mystery Knit Along. It's a beautiful shawl. I have seen the final product now, so I know that I will be delighted with it once it's done. But I have just put a little bit of, this is my next, let's get this done. I get about a cast-on-itis, and then I'll pick one thing to finish. So anyway, so this is my progress keeper's kind of distorting that one stripe, but this is as far as I've gotten here. Not much farther than the last time you saw it, but this is the one that I'm picking up now to work on. Okay, so this is as far as I am, but this is going to be my next focus. So I am knitting this with Potion Yarns. Okay, Potion Yarns, Johanna, who I met at East Texas Fiber Festival, and I also follow her wonderful, wonderful, very informative podcast, Color Cauldron by Potion Yarns. And these are the colors I'm using. This is Ancient Ritual, this is Magic Mermaid, and then this is Dread Pirate Roberts. So I can't wait to see all these coming together and bringing this shawl to life. So I'm anxious to get back onto that. Okay, I have a couple of other, or one other that I'll show. One other work in progress, but I'm going to have to pause this and go get it because it's in the other room. Okay, the last thing that I'll show today is something that qualifies for both Never Have I Ever and for the Kit or Get Her Done. I picked up several things on, as I call it, darn near free clearance sale last summer. And for some reason, I went silly crazy with the needlepoint cross stitch and embroidery kits, and I picked up this beautiful kit with the butterflies because butterflies remind me of my mother, and I decided I was going to try to get this done. Well, I've never needlepointed in my life, which is fine. I mean, in principle, right, it's not that hard. Drop my glasses. It's not that hard, but I have learned a few things from this already. So I have just barely started on this, but this is where I'm at. Okay, I picked up this scroll frame at a garage sale for $2, and it's one of those it's on a telescoping stand, which is in the other room. And then the little needle minder is from my local. There's a world-class crocheting or cross-stitching store in the town where I work, and it's called the Stitcher's Garden, and she's got everything you could ever need. So I picked this little needle minder up there, and then the little scissors were a gift from someone very dear to me, the little fairy scissors. This is as far as I am, but I have already learned the value of a couple of things. The first thing is the value of one of these. A needle threader. I am sped up so much since I bought this needle threader because it makes it so much easier, and it handles everything from fine little threads to heavy-duty yarns. Okay, that's by Janlin, I think. Yeah, Janlin. The other thing is the value of having extra needles. So I picked up 3 packages or 2 packages of needles so that I could have needles threaded in multiple different colors so that I could make quicker progress. So I've already learned a couple of things from this process, so I'm proud of that. But anyway, so that's where I'm at on that. My goal for this is to try, operative word being try, to get it done in time to get it framed and entered in the county fair. We'll see about that. That's, you know, you may say, well, that's 9 months away, but there's a lot of work here, and really in time to get it framed and get it back in time to enter in the fair, I need to be done with it by mid-July, or probably even the 1st of July. So I've really only got 7 months. So that still sounds like a long time, but it's not when you're as slow as I am. So if not, there's always next year. But anyway, so yes, that's my butterflies, needlepoint. So now we're going to move on and talk about future crafting. Okay, so for future crafting, you want up here, Willie? Okay, come on. Oh, good boy. Hi, buddy. Okay, for future crafting, I'm going to show you a couple of things that are a little bit more sewing related in addition to a yarny project. So the first thing is, I have had this adorable little free pattern from the Yarnspirations website, which I believe is, it's a particular yarn company. I can't remember which one. Oh, Sugar and Cream. Oh, you're going to fall, bud. Okay, I've had this adorable little octopus that I've wanted to make forever. And so, yeah. So perfect for, in this fact, this is what inspired me to do the Under the Sea theme. So I've got pulled out my, you know, Flame Hunter Orange Red Heart yarn here that I used for part of my marine life blanket. I used it for the anglerfish and the clownfish. So I'm going to make it out of that. So as soon as I finish my narwhal, this will be next up. And then I also have a really cute pattern for a hammerhead shark, but I haven't pulled that out yet. So next, I want to, this is a little felt applique Christmas stocking package that I got years ago at Walmart for the princely sum of $2. Okay. I've probably toted this thing around with me for over 15 years. But it is felt applique, and you cut out the felt pieces, and then I'm assuming you use like a Wonder Under or Heat and Bond or something on them. And I just think that that's really adorable. When I decorate big for Christmas, I do a kitchen theme, and I've got all these cooking Santas and things like that. And you'll notice he's taste testing, I guess, the cookies. And oh, look, Vanessa, he's got a little Christmas pudding right there. So anyway, I want to try to get this made up this year. I don't think it'll be hard. I need to get the directions out and read about it. And then last but not least, so this is a Kidder Get Her Done and a Never Have I Ever. And then this is a little pattern package for a little pumpkin basket, which I think will be adorable when it's done for fall. So those are in the foreseeable future of what I'm going to work on for future crafting. I don't have any acquisitions again this week that I want to share with you, just because I've got, as you can see, plenty of stuff. Plenty of stuff. I don't need to be buying anymore. I am trying to shop the craft room right now. So we're going to move on and talk about science. Okay, so what's going on with the science world, in my world anyway? We are back on campus. Classes begin on Friday, as I had mentioned, with the computer update situation. So I am working on updating my syllabi and getting my class paperwork ready. I'm very excited to be teaching meteorology, although I was less excited to find out that our trip to the National Severe Storms Lab is being affected possibly by the government shutdown, and I will reserve my thoughts on that situation. But if you know me, you probably have an idea of what I'm thinking right now. But anyway, so we're hopefully things will get straightened out with that. I hope sooner rather than later, in the way that justice needs to be served. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Because I would love for my students to be able to go to the National Severe Storms Lab. So, but even if they don't get to go there, we'll figure something out for them to do. It is a class that is meant to be, it's called Experiments in Physics, and what it's meant to be is for them to take a lecture portion of a class where we do a class in meteorology, or we do a nuclear physics class, or biophysics class, or an acoustics class, and then they travel to a national lab of some kind, or a large lab where the students get to actually do research with, you know, top tier professionals. So this year is the year for meteorology, or this spring is the year for meteorology. So I'm excited to get to teach meteorology, and hopefully everything will smooth out soon. Another thing that I found that was interesting is someone tagged me in an article from the wonderfulengineering.com website, and it's an article about a professor at Carthage College, Sarah Jensen, who teaches advanced mathematics and topology using knitting. And I had mentioned the book that Miss Mary Knitter had sent me about crocheting hyperbolic space. Well, this professor uses knitting, and it teaches students about how geometry can change depending on what the constraints are. And it lets them visualize what's going on hands-on in a way, and how it's constructed, how they think they're constructing one shape, but as we all know as fiber crafters, when you pull those needles out, the shape changes. So they're discovering what we have known all along. So I'm going to link that article because it's fairly short and it's really neat, and I think that you would enjoy reading it. So someone tagged me in that and I thought I would share it. Willie, what you doing, bud? You're being a fidget. Another thing that I'm excited about is my research students will be coming back soon. I'm actually going to have 4 different students working on projects this spring. I have 2 young women who are working on my Stellar Spectra project, which is how stars make different elements. And then I have 2 young men that are working on some archaeoastronomy projects. One of them is looking at some rock art in one of our local state parks that we think may indicate a return of Halley's Comet during the Mississippian era. And then if you watch my Vlogmas, you saw me and one of my research collaborators visiting a petroglyph. And so I have another student who is needing just a 1 semester long research project. So we're going to have him actually calculate some angles and see if that could have possibly been a winter solstice calendar of some kind. And so that's going to be his project. So one of the things that came up as a result of my Farmer's Almanac make-along was someone asked me what it meant that this month there was going to be a blood moon, and it is because of the lunar eclipse. There is going to be a lunar eclipse. It will be visible in North America on January 21st, which is the day of the full moon. You got to have a full moon to have a lunar eclipse, and we'll talk about that just in a minute. And the reason it's called the blood moon is because of the physical appearance of the moon during the totality of the eclipse. And I'll show a picture of that just in a minute. So I thought this would be a neat opportunity to talk a little bit about why eclipses occur. So there's several conditions that have to happen for an eclipse to occur. The first one is the moon has to be in the correct phase. And we'll talk about which phase needs which, or which eclipse needs which phase in just a second. But for a lunar eclipse, you need a full moon. Okay, you need a full moon. And then for a solar eclipse, which we just had last year, was it last year or year before last, 2017? I don't remember. The one that we just had, where it was a partial solar eclipse, you have to have a new moon for that to happen. Now, my house, which I'm very excited about, is going to be under the path of maximum totality for the 2024 solar eclipse. So I'm very excited about that. It's going to be in April of 2024, and I am very excited to get to see that because I have only ever seen a 95% totality eclipse. So I'm excited to see that. So, but what causes eclipses to happen? So the first thing, you got to have the right moon phase. The second thing is the moon's orbit is tilted relative to the Earth. So if this is the Earth, the moon's orbit is not in a flat plane around it. It's tilted, and it's only tilted by about 5 degrees, and this is the perfect book for this, What Makes Day and Night. Okay, it's tilted by about 5 degrees, but when you're talking about a couple of 100,000 miles away, a 5-degree tilt means that sometimes the moon is above the Earth, and so its shadow misses, and sometimes it's below, so its shadow misses. So not only do you got to have the right phase, you got to have the right tilt alignment so that the shadow actually hits the Earth. Same thing with the Earth and the moon. The lunar eclipse requires a full moon, but because of the tilt of the moon's orbit, you don't always see a lunar eclipse, although they are much more common than solar eclipses. Everybody, whether they realize it or not, has had the opportunity to see a full lunar eclipse. Whether they have taken that opportunity or not is a different story. So I made a couple of little drawings here. So this is a solar eclipse. So these are not to scale. Let me just really quickly say this is not to scale in any way, shape, or form. So here's the sun, and then you've got to have the moon in between the Earth and the sun, because what the word eclipse means is you are fully blocking out the light from this direct light from the sun. Okay? So in the case of the moon has no atmosphere. Okay? So the moon, the light is blocked out. There's a little bit of light that gets scattered off the moon's surface, and it creates a 2-part shadow. The very darkest part of the shadow, which is indicated by the solid line hitting the earth, that's called the umbra. And anybody that's under the umbra will see a total eclipse. The dashed portion is called the penumbra, and anybody that is under the penumbra will see a partial eclipse. And what part of the penumbra you are depends on, you know, how much of an eclipse you see. Okay? So you've got to have a new moon, and you've got to have the shadows line up. The shadow of the moon is little bitty, so most of the time, most people don't get to see any of the solar eclipse. And it doesn't last very long because the moon's moving really fast. So and because the earth is mostly water, most of the total solar eclipse lines are over the open ocean. So it's a much bigger deal to be able to see a total solar eclipse. Okay? So you're going to have a new moon, and the shadows have got to line up. Now, lunar eclipse, again, means a blocking of the light from the sun. Okay, so here we've got to line up with the sun, and then the earth, and then the moon. So the moon is over here as a full moon. Okay, the earth's shadow is a heck of a lot bigger. So pretty much anybody on the nighttime side of the moon, earth, where these pluses or these X's are, that's the umbra, you will see a total lunar eclipse. Then anybody in this little narrow portion will see a penumbra eclipse or a partial eclipse. Now here you've got to have a full moon, and you've still got to have the orbits line up, but it's a lot easier to fall in this bigger shadow. So this is a total lunar eclipse when you fall in the penumbra. Okay, so I'm going to stop this and turn the camera around so I can show you some pictures on my computer. Okay, so here's what I will show first. This is a photograph from the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and this shows you how the tilt causes the shadows not to line up. Okay, so over here, the moon's orbit has it tilted above the earth, so neither its shadow or does the earth's shadow hit it. Same thing over here. The tilt is just wrong. But here, when the tilt lines up with the orbital plane of the earth, which is called the ecliptic plane, then you could potentially have an eclipse. So that's the first thing you got to have happen. The second thing is, what does a lunar eclipse look like? It looks very different than a solar eclipse. So let me find the picture. Where did it go? Boop, boop. Okay, here we go. So this is actually a composite photograph of the moon as it goes into eclipse, into totality, and then out of eclipse from the Farmer's Almanac. So this is just a plain moon. So it's a full moon. Then what happens is, as it begins to enter the shadow, it kind of looks like Cookie Monster bit a hunk out of it. So you'll notice it's like, well, could that not be mistaken for one of the moon phases? It's just going to look odd. It's not going to look like one of the lunar phase moons. Then what you'll see here is the moon, as it goes into complete totality, glows red. This is the name, why it's called the blood moon. The reason this happens is the earth has an atmosphere, and some of the light passing through the earth's atmosphere gets bent and heads toward the moon. This moon light is not coming directly from the sun. It is being bent from the earth's atmosphere. Now, if you think about it, sunsets are red, correct? Because what happens is, as the sunlight comes through the atmosphere, the blue light gets preferentially scattered out. This is a process called Rayleigh scattering. And that's why the sky is blue, because blue light's coming at you from every direction out of the sunlight, because it's getting scattered around. The red light comes on straight through and makes the sunset look red. So light that passes through our atmosphere is going to look reddened, which is the term for it. It's going to look reddened. So it's actually going to pass through the atmosphere of the earth. Let me go to this picture. It's going to pass through the atmosphere of the earth and be bent toward the earth, kind of like a lens bends light with a microscope or a magnifying glass. And that reddened light is going to indirectly illuminate the moon and cause the reddening of the red appearance. Okay, so that's why it's called the blood moon. It's going to have a reddish appearance in the sky. So again, we'll go back to the Farmer's Almanac picture here, or this is not exactly the same one, but you're going to go from looking like Cookie Monster's biting a hunk out of it as it enters into totality and enters into the umbra, where the light's completely blocked, it's going to look dark, dim for a second, and then it's going to glow red because of that scattered light, and then it will come back out of the umbra into the penumbra, where it'll be a partial, and then it'll go back. So how long is this going to take? If you look at a time scale, okay, this is, I looked this one up for my latitude, okay, and longitude. So, in Central Standard Time, the partial eclipse, so Cookie Monster bites it at 9:30. The full eclipse is going to begin at 10:41, and then the midpoint of it is at 11:12, and then the full eclipse ends at 11:43. The whole eclipse ends at 1:48. So you see, that's several hour period there. The totality of it actually lasts over an hour. So it's very easy for us to go outside and see them. So you've got to have, first of all, it's got to be visible at night. So you'll notice this is all at night, okay? So 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So now we just got to hope for clear weather, clear skies, so that we can see the blood moon eclipse. Okay, so yeah, so now you know a little bit about why it's called the blood moon this month. And so now we're going to move on and talk about farm life. Okay, so we've had some really beautiful weather the last few days. It's been in the 70s and mild, mild conditions and low humidity, and that's all well and good until a cold front comes. Makes me really nervous, because this is the kind of weather that we start getting this kind of time of year, and then we'll get a cold front and we'll have some big storms. The deadliest tornado in Arkansas history was actually in January. And the tornado, not the Mayfair, that was Oklahoma City. The Super Tuesday tornado that actually hit Adkins, hit my town, was in 2008 in February. So we can have pretty strong tornadoes when we get these really warm days, and then a cold front comes through following that. So I get a little nervous. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting stuff done outside, and that's all well and good. But makes me a little bit nervous. Willie, where you at? Did you go to bed? Willie got bored with the science lesson and went to bed. Let me get him. Come here, buddy. Come on. Your adoring fans want to see you. They watch for you as much as they watch for me, I think. Oh, yes. Okay. I did prune my apple trees. I checked the Farmer's Almanac to see if it was a good time to prune, and I pruned my apple trees. And luckily, the bunnies got all the, not all the trimmings, but some of the trimmings. You can buy, actually, apple wood chews for your bunny rabbits, and it's good for their teeth. Shirley had asked me about why I gave that to them. It's because it's a good treat for their teeth. They need to gnaw on stuff to keep their teeth in shape, and so I gave them the apple wood. I gave them, and I have a bundle back there that I'm just going to give them periodically. They were all very excited to get them, and I'll post a little video clip of them chewing on them at the end of this. Barn Kitty, or Barnice as she's called now, is making a transition. Luckily, she is not pregnant. She is in full-blown kitty romance mode right now and singing the song of her people at 2 a.m. So she is thankfully not pregnant, so that means we can get her spayed right away. I'm going to wait till she goes out of heat, just because it is a little more difficult on them, and they have a little bit more blood loss if you spay them during a heat cycle. So I'm going to wait till she goes out of heat. And also, I'm starting to get a little hay worried here. I'm playing hay chicken, because the cattle, are going through their hay about a bale a day, which is fine. But, I've got to sit out there and count now how many I've got left. I do still have about 20 bales at my friend's place, and then my neighbor that sold me some this year said he could probably sell me 20 or so more, which should get me to where I need to be. All right. But it just tells me that I do have to make sure that, the number that I thought I needed is actually not the number that I actually needed. So I'm going to have to make sure I make arrangements in the future to get more hay. That's okay. I took Gusty and Flame back over to Mary Ann's. And I did go and help Miss Mary Ann clean out, or not clean out, but we got Uncle Bill's guns. Uncle Bill was a competitive shooter for many years, and he had some very nice rifles and pistols, and those are something that tend to go missing out of houses. So we went and loaded all of those up and took them up to their house and took care of that. We are going to have a memorial service for him when the Mary Ann has her family reunion in May, and the Barn family is going to be able to participate in that as well. So we did do that. We rode. I got to ride Gusty for a while, and then we messed with Bo for a while on Saturday. It was the first day of Saddle Club hours, so I was excited about that. And the Christmas pony, the Christmas gift pony, is getting all of the love and attention. We're having some foot issues at the barn with some fungal issues, but luckily my vet gave me a trick to work on those, so I'm very thankful to be getting on the back side of those right now. And I'm excited to be able to ride a lot this year. I'm decided if I'm going to teach lessons, I got 3 horses over there, I ought to be able to get on one of them and teach from the horse and not from the ground. That leads me to a little, it's comical in a way, but it also is a little lesson about fact-checking stuff. About once or twice a year, there is a post that goes around that says, 52 thoroughbreds need homes, they've been abandoned, their owner died, blah, blah, blah. And yes, that post is true, and it happened in 2011. If you check out the facts on this, the horses were all rehomed fairly quickly by the veterinarian. It was a thoroughbred farm in Ohio, and they found homes for all of the horses, and they are all completely safe. But what happens, it's just like that thing about Mars being as big as the full moon in the sky. It goes around every year, or every 6 months or so, and I get relentlessly tagged in it. Can't you help these horses? And I'm like, this is not real. This is not real. This is not real. Or, well, it was real, but it's out of date. So, I kind of had a little tirade about it with some friends of mine, and there's a few funny posts now. There's one where you can be marked safe from the 52 thoroughbreds post, or there's the thoroughbred post drinking game. I guess what I'm saying is we all want to help animals, but just follow up. Make sure, because I'm sure those people are tired of getting their phone rung. So just make sure that you follow up on that. So, but that's pretty much what's going on here on the farm. So I'm going to move on and close out with a couple of final thoughts. I wanted to slot this in here because I forgot to mention why Carol and I had gone to town today. Carol, who is Weld Pro on Ravelry, is pretty much my ride or die person, and she's an extremely prolific crocheter. And she had made a lot, and I had made some hats, and she'd made several little blankets and stuff. And so we drove to Fort Smith, which is the town, the big town west of us, and we went to a local homeless shelter transitional housing facility for families, and we donated those today, so that was a good thing, in the spirit of the charity make-along, which we'll be doing again next year, so be on the look, or later this year, so be on the lookout for that. So I look different because I was cold and I put my sweatshirt on, but I thought it was really important to give a shout out to my ride or die, my friend Carol, and all the good work that she did today. Okay, I wanted to close out with a few final thoughts, and it kind of goes back to the idea of moving your chair into the sun and making the choice. I couldn't sleep last night, and I was flipping through Instagram or YouTube or something, and I'm a big drag queen fan. I love drag queens. I love to follow. I have some that I enjoy following, and I was watching Fashion Photo Review, which if you're familiar with that, it's where a couple of well-known drag queens, Raja and Raven, review people's fashions. So they reviewed one particular queen named Pearl, who I enjoy and I follow, and I thought, well, I'm going to go watch a couple of her YouTube videos because they're pretty entertaining. Well, there was one on there that was about 2 weeks old, and it was basically a where my life is going now and I have some things to say video. And it was a very ground-shaking, earth-shattering, honest discussion of abuse. And the abuse that Pearl had experienced as a young man in the Midwest at the hands of family members, and then later as a young teenager at the hands of a much older man. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but basically this was the first time that he had ever put voice to what had happened. And he's, you know, in his 30s now. First time he had ever put voice to what had happened and made the choice to speak about it and thus take away the power that it was having on him internally. And because he said, you know, it's starting to affect my creative process and all of these things. So I am choosing to talk about these things now because I want to take away their power. It's a very profound video. It is very triggering if you've had any sort of assault or abuse in your life. But it's a very honest and heartfelt discussion of those things. And I was very impressed by it. So I'm going to link it below for those of you who might want to watch it. But that reminded me of a post that I saw around January 1st. I follow on Instagram the Appalachian Black Hat Society, and it's an earth-based group of people posting about different, you know, things about spiritual practices and stuff. But I really thought this was a nice post, and it's a very telling post. It's, a lie is a lie, no matter the context. A truth is a truth is a truth, no matter the context. Meanness is meanness, no matter the context. Kindness is kindness, no matter the context. You are you, no matter the context. You can choose to lie or speak your truth, or be mean, or be kind. You can choose to be genuine, or loud, or violent, or affectionate, or invisible, or busy, or weird. You can choose none of those, but you do choose. All things are choice. But you ain't got to do anything. Phew, isn't that good news? So, it's like, move my chair into the sun. You ain't got to stay in that place. Even if you physically can't move out of that place, you can start the change up here. And I think that's an important thing for me to remember. And start that change in here too. I was thinking about that because, you know, you may do a kindness for someone, you may make them a gift, and they may not receive it in the way that you would hope, but the kindness is in the action, not in the reception of the act. And you can choose to be mean, and you can choose to say things that are hurtful, even though you may back up and say, well, I was just kidding, when really the damage has been done. So you make a choice when you do those things or say those things. So I'm going to really work hard to make choices that I feel like are positive and healthy for me. And remember that how my choices are my choices no matter the context. So I can't worry about how people receive those choices. I have to think about the choice that I made and how I framed it in that time. So anyway, you ain't got to do anything, as Granny says. You ain't got to do nothing. So anyway, so let's choose to be good to each other. So I'm going to see y'all soon, but until I do, what is it, Willie? Y'all be good to each other. I love you. And take care of each other. Yeah. And what, Willie? Peace out, y'all. Bye.